right. Let's talk about porn. I mean, X. Um,
I mean, we can talk about porn too. It kind of goes hand in hand with this movie.
yeah, this movie, man, what a ride!
What a ride.
What a ride!
Literally.
This movie came out in 2022, earlier this year. It was filmed during COVID. Did it come out April or May this year?
I believe it came out
March.
March 18th. You're right. Yeah. That
Yeah.
there was a lot of good horror stuff coming out this year, so I kind of lost track.
Yeah.
This year in general, we've been blessed, but
Well, and also it doesn't help that the prequel came out just a couple months later. So it's like weird to think of two movies in one franchise happening in the same year.
yeah.
But yeah, so this is an A24 film, came out March 18th. So the box office for this was gross worldwide. It did about $14 million. Budget for it was about $1 million. So another good example of low budget horror film doing really good. 14 million doesn't seem like a whole lot, but when you spend only a million, that's a winner.
That's a winner. And yeah, I feel like if you also like low budget practical effects, they just go hand in hand. It saves money and it looks better.
Mhm.
I'm glad that they don't have the extra money for CGI for some of these because I feel like it would ruin it.
Absolutely. So there's a lot of interesting stuff with the making of this movie. And I know you know more about it, a lot more about it than I do. So walk me through some of this cuz it's pretty wild.
It's pretty crazy, and I actually like when the first trailer dropped is when I first was like, "Oh, everybody online was talking about how excited they were about this movie and about Ty West, who's the director, who I didn't know who he was, I hate to admit, and I wasn't familiar with his other movies. People were excited about him, and I remember like paying attention because also the trailer looked great. I remembered that they were shooting it during COVID and they shot it in New Zealand actually, and that's probably also to save money for the budget, even though it takes place in Texas. I think it looks really great. You can't really
Mhm.
tell at all, which is crazy. So basically, because I think normally when you like travel to like New Zealand or Australia, at least during COVID, they have very strict restrictions on their countries compared to ours. And so they had to do like a 2-week quarantine as soon as they like got there. So they couldn't even like prep for X or do anything like that. I mean, they could prep, but they couldn't like, interact with each other. They were all quarantined
Mhm.
separately. So Ty West talked to me at Goth and was like, you know, I've been thinking about this with the character Pearl because Mia Goth plays the lead role Maxine, and she also plays the old woman Pearl, and that's where the idea for Pearl, the prequel, which is now in theaters, came from. Him and Mia Goth wrote the script for that while they were in the 2-week quarantine prepping before they even shot X, which is just insane to me.
So they flew there to make a movie, and then while they were in a 2-week quarantine, they wrote another movie.
Yeah, I think I mean, at least from what I've heard from Ty West, it kinda sounds like, COVID, for everyone, it was an uncertain time, but especially for filmmaking, I think they were like, "We don't know when we're gonna get this chance again, and we don't
Mhm.
know, like, what the deal is with the industry." Things were just very questionable. So he was like, "While we're here and, like, filming this, and we have this idea, let's, like, before we take down the sets at the end of it, let's use everything we have and film another one." And A24 said, "Sure, go ahead." Which is, I think, the craziest part, right?
Yeah, they just greenlit a sequel to a totally unknown movie.
Yeah, before X had even like they literally had just filmed it. They hadn't even seen anything from it. They might have seen some
Yeah.
dailies, but I mean, it's incredible that they like I love that about A24. I feel like they really trust the artists and they're like I think I just saw a quote from Tim Burton. It was saying that, he always worked with big companies, but he said back in the day those companies were owned by people who like loved movies and who had made movies and who understood that whole world, whereas now it's just business people trying to make money. And he said that like there's some places where he's seen a little hope, but overall he found that like the corporate thing is now just business. It's not
Mhm.
there's less of the artist there, anybody who really supports the artist's vision, which is just very depressing, but I find that's what, like, I love about A24 that they keep true to that, and they really stick with the artist and their vision, and they don't really, I mean, obviously, I know every company fucking cares about money, but it seems like they don't put as much of a big thing on it as, like, every other fucking production company, you know?
Yeah, and they definitely have a reputation for that because, like, you look at their list of movies, and, like, some of the movies are just bizarre,
Dude,
like
90% of the movies are just bizarre that they release.
like, I watched a couple weeks ago, I watched Under the Skin, and I'm just like, "This movie is a very strange movie," and I loved it, but, like, I'm just like, I can't imagine, like, Warner Brothers making that
No.
movie, or, like, we talked about Malignant, and the only reason Malignant got made is because James Wan has just been a cash cow for them. They're like, "Alright, you get one."
He's got fuck you money, he can do what he wants, you
Yeah.
know? But, like, with everybody else out there, it's like, I mean, the fact that even Tim Burton said he was having trouble getting shit done, it's like, that guy's been around forever, like, if they're not even trusting just him, it's like, nobody wants to take risks in filmmaking, it seems like. There's not, like, at least the production companies, so I don't know why, because that's where you get the fucking, like, gems like this.
Mhm.
X is incredible. I don't think a regular studio would have made it for sure. Like, there's
Mhm.
just no way, but the fact that it got made and that it's 100% his vision, I think is just that's why it's so special to me.
Well, and then also the fact that they greenlit the second one just right off the bat, that's super weird, and, you and I, we just got done reviewing all of the new Halloweens,
Mhm.
and we talked a lot about those and how kind of disconnected they feel from each other. Like, the first one, and they've even said, like, the first one was supposed to be a standalone movie, and then it did pretty good, so then they did the second one, and I think it still did pretty good. And then the third one, rather than having the whole thing be in one night, which is kind of what they were setting up, they just jumped 4 years later. It is just like these movies just feel like they're technically a trilogy, but, like, it's just very disconnected. Like, I don't like, I really loved Halloween Kills. I can go in and watch Halloween Kills and have no desire to watch the other 2, you know? Whereas, like, there's other movies where it's like, if I'm starting one of these, I'm watching all of them.
This is how it is whenever I start Fellowship. I'm like,
Yeah.
this is a dangerous game I'm playing because this is, like, at least another, like, 9 hours after this. Plus, then I have the 3 Hobbit movies, which I always jump into after that 'cause, you just can't.
Yeah, you're weird with that one.
Okay, I don't care. I love The Hobbit. Anyways, I just think, like, it's crazy that there is an original horror trilogy that's I mean, as I don't know if we've already mentioned it yet, but there is a 3rd movie now that he's already announced, and we'll talk about it a little later, called Maxine. But just the
Mhm.
fact that, like, within a year or within 2 years, like, he's gonna have 3 movies in a trilogy out is incredible.
Yeah, it's wild.
Incredible. Yeah, and that's the way to do it. I mean, I think I said this to you before, but with the new It movies, it's like, that is a huge ass book. It is 2 like, it should be 2 movies. There's, like it's not like The Hobbit where you're like, "That could be 1." It's like, that movie deserves 2 movies. They were like, "We'll start with just 1 and see if people want more," and it's like, that's why the second one, I think, feels a little disjointed, but it's like, really? You weren't willing to gamble on Stephen fucking King and Pennywise the Clown, who might be one of, like, the best villains of all time? Like, that's where we're at now. They wouldn't even gamble on that, which is crazy. So the fact that A24 was like, "Fuck it. We'll do it live. We're gonna do it. We're gonna do all
Do it
this."
live.
Yeah.
Fuck it.
Fuck it. Why not? It's like, that's incredible. I'm just so happy that this is, like, a thing because I think if anything I've learned from this year, it's that people want and respond to original horror.
Yeah. You got original stories, but especially original horror.
I'm excited for what this movie means for in general for other movies and horror especially.
And before we jump into the actual movie itself, I just looked this up. This is also pretty wild that A24 greenlit this with Ty West because this is the first movie that Ty West has done since The Innkeepers in 2011. Like, Ty West hasn't done a movie in 10 years.
He's been doing TV apparently. That's
He's
what
yeah,
he
he's
went
he's
to.
just been directing a couple episodes here and there. He did a segment of VHS,
Mhm.
and yeah, like, that's crazy to think that somebody who's been out of the game for 10 years. There's like, oh yeah, do a movie. Oh, you want to do a sequel? Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah. I mean, as soon as people heard that he was making another horror movie, people were so excited because he's really talented and
Hmm.
I hadn't been following his career at that point, but now I'm definitely like all about it. I need to see The Innkeeper still. But I will say House of the Devil was excellent and his segment in VHS as well. I haven't seen in the TV he's done, but I'm sure it's fucking great. And I think
Hmm.
it's like I don't know if it was like him taking a break and also like, because it is a different vibe and it's a little maybe nice to take a break from, like, doing a fucking whole ass movie every once in a while and go do some TV. You can kinda bust out an episode. That sounds like a nice break, kind of,
Yeah,
but you're still, like, keeping those skills up to date, but, yeah, the fact that he just jumps back in with this is that's a comeback for sure.
yeah. For real. So the plot of this movie, according to IMDb, is in 1979, a group of young filmmakers set out to make an adult film in rural Texas. But when their reclusive elderly hosts catch them in the act, the cast finds themselves fighting for their lives.
That's pretty good, actually.
Yeah. And
Way to go, IMDb.
nailed it. And this is another example of A24 doing movies that have pretty basic stories, but the way that they let directors and everyone's like really own those stories and do what they want with them and build these characters. It's just another example of like you don't need the most unique plot in the world to make a great movie.
Yeah, you don't, honestly, and I think sometimes maybe trying to get too complicated with the plot or something like as I did like Halloween Ends, but I will say like there's a lot of cooks in the kitchen on that, I think. You can tell there's a
Yeah.
lot of different ideas going around. There's not one cohesive theme. And that's what I was just so shocked about coming back to this movie was like just rewatching it again. I'm like, wow, everything is so cohesive. Everything is like there's just so much that comes back around at the end and just in general like I mean the way that they set everything up, the characters, it gets weird, but it doesn't like get like hard to understand, you know?
Yeah. So let me ask you this. It's probably a too broad of a question, but I'm going to trust you. So what is it if you had to pick something? What is it about this movie that you just love so much?
That's gonna be tough because yeah, I don't know if I can just pick one thing, but I will say like overall I think it's like one of those horror movies that I really respond to the characters. I think the
Mhm.
characters are really well drawn and like everybody gives a great performance. And it's also I think just unique in the fact that it's like a first horror movie I've seen in a while where the villain is actually sympathetic, which is really unique to me and I found that was like something that I did not expect, especially with how weird and creepy and awful the Pearl is,
Yeah.
like she's a tough nut to crack, but and you're not gonna like a lot of it, but there is, like, some sympathy to her, and you kind of, like I guess maybe just because it deals with universal themes that I feel like we can all relate to, right? With which is aging and
Mhm.
beauty and, like, my life, does it live up to what I wanted it to be, you know what I mean? Kind of like things passing you by, not taking full advantage in the moment. But, yeah, I mean, it's hard to sum it up, but that's, like, kind of the main things for me. What about you? Why do you love this movie?
I think it boils down to the same thing as you. I just love how this movie has no wasted characters. Every character has development. We learn them, we understand them, their story, like even just like the littlest things. Like, I mean, first off, Kid Cudi, love having him in the horror world.
Don't be standing there like you're all proud of yourself.
I was born for this line of work.
Uh, you didn't do nothing, dummy. It's called acting.
You good, but you ain't that good.
But like that's a character that in other movies where like he's just the guy who fucks. Like that's it. But like you learn just the littlest thing like that he was a soldier
Mhm.
and after he got out of the war like this is the line of work that he fell into,
Yeah.
and like that little thing adds a lot to the character. And so then when he goes out and searches for Pearl, like it adds to the character. Like Brittany Snow, she's the star of this whole thing. And also Brittany Snow is amazing. When I saw that she was in it, I'm like, Brittany Snow playing a porn star? I'm not sure.
I know I hadn't seen her be this way before, and also, like, the fact that she just had that confidence, just, like, she was fucking owning her character. She was my favorite character, I think, of the whole movie.
Your little boyfriend's cute. You help him with all his films? Sometimes. Yeah? Is that your boyfriend? Sometimes. Yeah.
I just think she did so much with it that she coulda just been a stereotype, but she had, like, actual depth to her character, and it just is very cool. It added a
Yeah.
whole other layer to it and really felt in theme with the movie, you know?
Yeah. Well, then like Jenna Ortega, like she doesn't have like a lot of lines. Like she doesn't have a lot of speaking, but like
Church Mouse.
yeah, and they so she plays the role of like, yeah, the prude kind of, church kid that kind of like I know for me, like I grew up in that. And so like her seeing this other world and like exposure to it and seeing it different than just like how we're told to think it is. Like even with the littlest amount of lines, like that character has a ton of development and then ends up, fucking Kid Cudi. Um,
I mean, I just love I think my favorite is her line when she's like,
I don't know if I agree with all of that, but I did like what I saw today.
and I was
yeah.
like, "I like that. That was cool." Like, because at first you're like, you're totally with, Mia Goth's character, Maxine. You're like, "Yeah, this bitch is, like, super judgy and, like, staring at everybody and just kind of like, oh god, look at all these whores I'm around." You know what I mean? So she's kinda
Yeah.
like, "Fuck this bitch." But then, like, I just think Jenna Ortega also is just inherently likable, so she really pulled me around on her character. And also,
Mhm.
I just enjoy her in general. She's an up and coming, like, if not one of the top scream queens, I think, right now. She's got an incredible scream.
And I mean, we can't talk about her without talking about her death. One of the
Yes.
most shocking Whoa! When she just gets
Literally.
blasted.
Yeah. I have a whole, like, list of all the deaths that I think we should go through at some point
Yep.
because they're all incredible, but that is, I think, I think that might be my favorite just because it's hilarious.
Yeah. And then the director, what's his name? Is it Jonathan?
RJ.
RJ. No, RJ is the yeah, he's the guy with the camera.
Yeah, that's the director.
But who's the guy doing the poor man's Matthew McConaughey impression?
Oh, okay, yeah, sorry. He's, Wayne.
Wayne. Fucking love Wayne.
I felt like when I saw this movie, I didn't know who he was, and then my brother-in-law, Andy, just reminded me that he is the guy from The Ring, and I was
Yeah.
like, "What the fuck?" And then I went back and watched, some other horror movies, and I've seen him in a few now, and I'm just like, "I love this guy." He's kind of a chameleon, weirdly, because this movie is nothing like him in The Ring. He literally is Matthew McConaughey in this movie, if McConaughey was, like, making an indie porno.
I I wrote in my notes, I'm like, Wayne is the richest poor man's Matthew McConaughey impression. Like
Yeah,
it is the best thing ever. I
I
love it
know.
so much.
Oh, Dan, that's my future fiance you're eyeballing there. Been a while since you've seen anything that nice.
Especially since he's a total piece of shit. Like
Exactly.
but he's endearing.
He is an endearing guy, and he actually, like, I feel like I really like his character in the movie. I'm surprised how much I liked all of the characters in this movie. Maybe it's just as a horror fan, I'm used to hating the main characters usually. There's maybe one girl that you're like, "Okay, I can get behind her," but I would say 90% of horror movies, you're like, "I'm rooting for the villain to kill these
Yeah.
fuckers because they suck."
Well, and Wayne's ultimate goal is he's trying to make a ton of money. He's trying to
Mhm.
capitalize on this at-home video
Yeah,
trend. um,
exactly. Smartly, I mean, this was the time.
So yeah, like Wayne's whole motivation is he's trying to make money, capitalize on this at-home video thing. um,
Smart
and
move.
the way that he's gonna do it is with this artsy filmmaking kid who is gonna make the best, adult movie ever. And so it's like then you now know the motivation of Wayne because he had these IRS things. He lost all
Mhm.
of his money, so he's trying to make all the money. And then the kid is like a filmmaker and he's just trying to get his start.
Now, I may not know shit from Shinola when it comes to filmmaking, but I know for damn sure people are gonna want to see what I just saw in there. Well, that's because I'm not treating it like pornography, but it's cinema. And that's what these other adult films are lacking.
I'm gonna make it all avant-garde like they're doing in France. Makes it
Yeah.
classier. And I was like, I love he played his role very perfectly, I will say, but it's also like, yeah, fuck this guy. I'm making art. It's porn. Okay, fuck off. Like you can make it look nice, but it's fucking porn.
I love how throughout the whole movie they keep like reminding him like people aren't watching this for the story.
I think that's why my favorite part is like, or one of my favorite lines is when like he's filming Brittany Snow and Kid Cudi fucking, and he's trying to give him directions of like what to do, and he's like,
Hey, kid, how about you just point the camera, stay in your lane. Let me do the screwing here.
Stay in your lane.
"Yeah, stay in your lane. I'm the one fucking, okay? Unless you want to bend over, and I'll fuck you." Was like kind of the vibe I got from that line.
my my favorite line in the movie is after they film that whole scene, Wayne and RJ are talking in the hallway. They're like, "This is going to be the greatest thing ever." And then Wayne's just like, "Feel how hard my cock is." And just like grabs his hand and puts it on.
And then Arjun's just like, "Oh yeah,
Oh
yeah."
yeah.
Also, I want to say like just shout out to Kid Cudi that he fucked 3 bitches in one day, and like it sounds like a great performance for each one, which is just good for him. I'm sure he was like, "Yeah, I'll play this part. Fuck it."
Oh yeah, I didn't think about that. Yeah, this
3.
whole movie takes place in one night,
Yeah,
or
this
yeah,
is
one day.
technically one of those 24-hour movies where like everything takes place at the same time. There's no flashbacks. There's no nothing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, technically, the whole movie's a flashback because it starts with the cops come there.
Sure, sure. I think it's more just like, but it's still in the same 24-hour period,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah. Starts with the cops, then it goes back a day.
So then the we get to Mia Goth and like character development all across the board from Maxine to Pearl. And to kind of speak to what you were saying about Pearl and like a villain that like has a story and is sympathetic, like I thought Pearl was brilliantly written. Like, yeah, this old woman who
You could tell she's like in old age makeup too, but you're like, I'm always sus. I don't know what that means, but it is better than like some other ones, but like you can always kind of tell a little bit.
I thought the prosthetics were great.
Oh, they were, yeah.
I didn't know that was Mia Goth the first time I watched it.
I didn't know for a while. I think I picked up on it later when, like, she was looking at pictures of her and they're, like, talking to each other, and I was like, "Oh, that's
Yeah.
her, so okay." But I was like, I just knew that it was somebody in makeup, and I thought the old guy, but I can't really tell. I think it is an actual, like, older guy who's playing him, but
Yeah, I looked him up. Yeah, it's a guy. He is credited as several orcs in the Lord of the Rings
hmm,
movies.
well, yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
He's
But
got that face.
yeah, Pearl has such a great story and development. Like, yeah, this older woman that was beautiful and clearly had some level of like notoriety and like fame.
Or wanted
And
it and didn't get it. We don't know really.
yeah, and now all that's been stripped of her in her old age. And her husband can't have sex with her because of
Or
his
a heart
heart.
attack. Yep.
I mean, when I was watching this movie, I'm like, this movie is like a cautionary tale of like the value of having a good sex life into your older age. Like,
Yeah. I mean, honestly, and I was a little surprised. I'm like, I mean, I'm sure that like there's old women who are horny, but this I Pearl feels like the horniest old woman I've ever seen or ever heard of.
I mean, there is all of those jokes about STDs getting passed around to old folks' homes because
I guess that's true.
they're just bouncing around on each other.
That's disgusting. We saw enough of that in this movie.
It's like a tandem bicycle.
Ew, stop. Gross. That's upsetting. I thought that the sex scene in this movie was bad, but Jesus. 'Cause yeah, when you see them fucking, it's like pretty upsetting. Like, no offense. I know that, like, this movie plays on your fears of old people. Not that we're, like,
Hey,
scared of them killing us, but just, like, they're very unsettling to look at.
it's a fear they could kill us.
It's the fear that, like, we're eventually gonna turn into them, and they're also just so near death that it's just upsetting, I think. I That's why I hate going to, like, old folks' homes and, like or the hospital. I'm just like, "Ugh." Like, I don't wanna be around all this death. It's too early for me.
Well, and I mean, I don't know, Pearl fucks. Like she kills so many people in this movie. Like
Mhm.
I put it one thing in my notes. I was like, Pearl and Michael Myers should get together and just like start terrorizing the world, like two old people that just fuck.
Yeah,
Like,
although Michael doesn't fuck, really, we haven't seen him fuck, but I bet he could.
I'm saying fuck, not in the literal fuck.
Oh,
Like
okay. Well, with Pearl, you never know.
it's like Silicon Valley. Like this guy fucks.
Yeah, but that's the thing is, like exactly. But it also feels like with Michael Myers, you could try to fuck him, but I don't think it would save your life. It might make him kill you first, and I don't think he'd fuck you at all. But with Pearl, it seems like maybe if you tried to fuck her, you might be able to live a little bit longer. Maybe she wouldn't kill you, right?
I mean, she would kill you after she finishes.
Yeah, but I mean, she's who knows how long that'll take.
So Pearl kills so many people. How about we go through some of the kills that you mentioned?
Perfect.
Because
Cool.
it to me on the second watch, I'm just reminded how no character is wasted in this movie and no kill is wasted. All the
Yeah.
kills are fucking great.
Yes, they are. They are.
So, list them off.
Okay, so I think we'll just go from like beginning to end with that just to make it easier. The first one to die, of course, is the director RJ, which I think after that scene of him, which he's upset at this moment because Jenna Ortega, his little church mouse girlfriend, decides she wants to be in the film, and then she does a scene with Kid Cudi that he had to record. So he's
Mhm.
kind of upset, sure. But then he's like crying in the shower, and I'm just like, I'm ready for this fucker to die. He sucks, like he's just such a little bitch. So then he's like, well, fuck all these guys. I'm just gonna take the car and go. And he drives off. But then Pearl's standing outside the house and like looking all lost, which like I mean, that's how the old people, if they're gonna be a killer, are pretty good. You'd never
How they
suspect
get
them.
you.
Yeah, because 'cause they're like, so I'm sorry, miss. Can I help you in the house or find your husband?" And she starts, like, hugging him and then starts, like, fucking
Moaning.
touching him and moaning, and he's like, "What are you doing?" And then she's like, "I want you to, like, touch me like you touched her or look at me like that." And he's like, "What? No, gross." And then she just fucking, like, stabs him in the fucking neck all of a sudden.
Multiple times. Like she almost decapitates him by stabbing, not by cut like slicing. She's almost just stabs through his entire neck.
Literally, like, the whole time while he's on the ground, like, I mean, I think he's still alive, I can't really tell, but she's going, and I think my favorite part about this scene is that "Don't Fear the Reaper" is playing as the
Mhm.
soundtrack, and it's just perfection with the red, like, lighting outside, it's so good.
I thought that was such a good idea to show the blood splash on the headlights and then that changes the whole lighting of the scene. I thought it was so good.
Yeah, I love it. Give me the red coloring and the song too is just a perfect choice. I love that when it comes up in because it is a good choice for a horror movie and it
Mhm.
does appear in certain ones, but this has got to be my favorite use of it, I think. And it is pretty graphic.
Oh,
Again,
yeah.
she stabs him a lot. Like I
Mhm.
thought there's no way she her arm would have broken off. She doesn't seem like she can really handle that much shit, but she really goes for it.
Yeah.
She's not done with that guy until his head's almost completely off,
And then just leaves him.
and then just leaves him. So then after that, then Jenna Ortega wakes up and she's like, "Where's my boyfriend? He's gone." And then good old Wayne and his little skivvies is like, "Oh, we'll find him tomorrow. He's probably fine." And she's like, "No, let's go find him." So then they go off wandering and
Real quick, when I first watched the movie, I thought Wayne was wearing a diaper.
I'm sorry, a diaper? He's wearing like fucking like whitey tighties, right?
But, there's just something about it that it looked puffy, like, I'm like, "Is he wearing a diaper?" It was a split second. It just looked like he was wearing a diaper.
Ew.
It's a but yeah, it's whitey tights. Just had to put that out there.
That makes it worse if he's wearing a diaper. I'd be like, "Okay, he deserves it." But yeah, no, so his is, so then he's going through the barn and he
Oh,
steps on a fucking nail, which you, like, see it sticking up from the ground, you're, like, just
oh,
waiting for it.
yeah.
Hate whenever things happen to feet. It's always, like, the Achilles heel or, like, stepping on something like that, it always gets me.
Sarah was cringing while watching that because the thing about that scene and another scene is you see it coming. It's not a jump. Like
No,
the
not a
way
jump
that
at
he's
all.
walking towards the camera and then the camera just pans down. and then you see the nail, and then you see him walking towards the nail, and you're just like, no, 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 and then he
They're
does.
gonna
It, you're like,
cut. They're gonna cut. Yeah, and
and
then they
they don't.
don't.
The other scene that was like that was the alligator scene at the beginning when Mia Goth is just floating there, and you just that wide bird's eye shot, and you just see the alligator just coming.
Swimming behind her. She's swimming to the dock all casual, like, oh, no care in the world. It's
Oh,
like, bitch, go. Like, that was so
S-
stressful.
Sarah was just like, no, oh.
Literally my nightmare. Like, I was like, this is why I won't go in a fucking lake. They're not safe, even a lake. And this is in Texas? I didn't know that there's fucking alligators in Texas. Are you kidding me? Never going there. Sorry, not gonna happen.
Maybe it's like in the Houston part of Texas, which is closer to like Louisiana. So there might be some like swampy areas.
All I know is fuck that shit. That was as soon as I saw that gator, I'm like, someone's getting got by the gator. I knew something bad was gonna happen with it, and I was like, they're not gonna kill Mia Goth. Like
Yeah.
she's the one on the poster. Like that would have been a huge surprise, but thankfully
So,
she gets out, doesn't even realize
yeah.
it. But yes, so
So
back to
so
Wayne.
Wayne steps on the nail.
Steps on the nail, falls down, and then he's like freaking out, pulls it out, and then he's like, RJ, are you over here? It's like, no one's in here. Run, get out of here. I hate when people in movies are like, is that you? It's like, dumbass. So then, because he sees like a shadow move on the outside of the fucking thing. So he's like, oh, who's that? RJ? And instead of just walking outside and like looking who it is, he like peers down to like these like holes in the wall and like looks through. And then she literally shoves a pitchfork through and pulls his fucking eyes out of his head, which is incredible that like she did that through the fucking little holes. I mean, crazy, but also had to mention with this one because there's a couple of deaths that are foreshadowed pretty clearly in the
Oh
movie.
yeah.
And Wayne's definitely is when he says that this movie's gonna have people's eyes popping out of their fucking skulls. And it's like literally that's what happens to you.
Well, and I like how they break that death into like two parts. Like you see the rake go through his eyes, and then it cuts to another scene,
hmm
and then it's long enough that you're like, oh, I forgot about the rake in the eye part, and then it just pops right back to that after you've forgotten about it.
And then they're
And
like
then,
pulling the eyes out.
yeah.
And you're like, oh my God, Jesus. I needed to see that, huh? That was good. And then I think what happens in between there is Jenna Ortega goes up to the house looking for her boyfriend, and then the old man, Pearl's husband, is like, "Oh, help me come find her because she's gone," and has her go down to the basement and then locks her in there. And there's some guy tied up down there is dead and naked and
Hmm.
upsetting, very upsetting. Funny thing is that guy's actually the same dude that his face is on the milk carton earlier, I think, when they go to the store.
Oh wow,
Yeah.
interesting. Question: did you think that Wayne was or not Wayne, Howard was the one who locked her in the basement at that point?
Oh, I thought he did.
I thought it was still Pearl. At this point, I thought Howard was still innocent.
Interesting. Okay. I just
Yeah.
assumed if Pearl's up to no good like this, he must know about it. Because, I mean, if he's been married to her this long, I can't imagine this is something new.
Well, I felt like Howard knew that she was doing stuff because he always says like, my wife, she's not well. Like he knows. And so like I feel like he's just trying to like contain it.
hmm
And so like at that point I thought like she went down there, but then like Pearl had done something like maybe killed Howard, locked her in the basement kind of
Oh,
thing.
interesting. That didn't even occur to me. I just assumed the old people were in on it together because the old guy was creepy looking, and so naturally I just assumed
Yeah.
he's a bad guy too. But I guess what he was doing is he didn't know which one Pearl would like out of the girls,
Yeah.
and so that one just came to him, and he's like, "Well, I'll lock you up, and keep you down here, see if she
Yeah.
likes you. If not, we'll just kill you." So I was
Yeah.
like, "That's fucked up." Like, and also it is just like you might be like, "Oh, this is so unbelievable. These old people killing these young people," but I mean, again, they have the element of surprise. These old
Mhm.
people do not seem like they're gonna fucking murder everybody, and they all seem like so frail. And I mean, I think it's just natural when you see an old frail person, you're like, this person can't do anything. They're just
Yeah.
about to fucking croak. Like they could barely walk. What are they gonna do to me? Like I
Well,
would
and
never
that
assume that, and so that's what's crazy.
and that's why the end is so good because like you see the frailty. But like
Yes,
you're right. This movie is super realistic of like how would a couple old people actually do something like this? And it's
exactly.
all through surprise and being
acting like old people.
unexpected. Yeah,
Yeah, "Oh, my wife is, like, gone, I need help finding her, would you come with me?" It's like,
yeah,
"Okay," or like, "Oh, my knees aren't good, could you go down and get the light out of the basement, the flashlight,
yeah,
because, like, we need to go find her and stuff," and you're like,
yeah.
"Okay, yeah, sure." But, like, again, it's the perfect situation, it's not too unrealistic, so, if you think this sounds crazy, just please watch the movie and then you'll understand. The next one I believe that gets killed is Kid Cudi, right?
Yeah, I think so.
So he wakes up and the old guy, after having locked up Jenna Ortega, is at the house and he's looking for Pearl. And Kid Cudi's like, "Oh, I'll help you go find her." And
With his
so he's
with his loaf out, and you see
yeah,
it in the shadow. It's just like, let me put on my skivvies, and just
yeah.
boom.
That's
Here's
what I'm saying. That was nice. That was great. I loved that shot. I was like, yeah, like we all knew that's what he was working with, but I'm glad we got some confirmation.
can we get some can we get some fact checking on if that was a prosthetic or not? You know, that shadow. Can we just want, for our own purposes, we like to be authentic and
Yeah.
accurate here on the regular exclusive. So we just want to
Yes.
know our stuff. So yeah.
Is Cudi's penis just kidding. I don't want to Google this. If anybody knows this, please let us know.
Googling X the movie is hard enough to search.
Just like with Halloween, man. It's like
Yeah.
these movies, I swear to God. So then he goes off with the old guy. They're going through. You think he might get caught by the fucking gator because they're going through the swamp area.
Hmm.
He sees a car in the swamp, very similar looking to Psycho, which
Hmm.
is like that's like the ending shot of that movie. And the gator's like right there, but it doesn't get him. And then he finds like the flashlight. He thinks the old guy like fell down or something. He's looking for him. And then the old guy like shoots him like point blank and kills him.
The first of many great shotgun kills.
Yes, and I will say that, like, there's a lot, and this one's definitely not the best, but it was, like, still kind of surprising how quick it was. Like, it
Yeah.
was like, do you know what you're doing?" or whatever. He's like, "Oh, are you okay?" And he's like, "I'm fine." And it was like, "Damn, shit." Like, he just fucking killed him.
That's one thing that's great is that, a gunshot happens so fast that regardless, it should be sudden. And like a
Mhm.
lot of times there's build up to the gunshot and it kind of
I know.
takes away from it. This
Yeah.
every gunshot kill is just, whoa, what the
Yeah.
and
That's
this
how it
one,
should be.
yeah. And it's like this one, he's like, I'm not gonna talk. I'm just gonna shoot you.
Exactly. I agree. So that one was good. Plus, also another little foreshadowing because he talks about how he was in Vietnam and he says, I've had enough farmers shooting at me for one lifetime. And then he gets killed
Mm.
by a farmer who shoots him. So little fun
Oh,
details. I love those little
yeah.
things. The next one I think is the one that bothers me the most, not because it's like, I mean, it's also horrifying, but also because I love her character the most, Brittany Snow and the
Oh,
gator.
what a kill.
What a kill, man, and it's so upsetting and also foreshadowed. I don't know if you know this, but at the very beginning of the movie when they're leaving the strip club and it's like the outside shot of the strip club building, there's like a painting on it of like a blonde girl in a bikini with her bottoms like kind of down and they're being pulled by a gator.
Oh.
Another little detail.
I didn't see any of this. So
I've
thank
caught
you.
all these things on my rewatches, and I've also confirmed them online because it's a sickness that I have. But but I did like that there was the foreshadowing. I was very disappointed because I didn't want her to die. I'm sorry. I just fucking loved her in this movie, but she's like trying to help Pearl too, and then Pearl like fucking is like fuck you bitch or whatever and then like she's like oh fine with it. I don't need to help you bitch and then she like pushes her in the water and then the gator comes up really sudden, because 'cause he's been pretty slow the rest of the movie. We thought this guy was
Yeah.
patient, but he must have just fucking had it. He's ready, and his jaws grab her fucking head, and then do the death roll. Yeah, I mean, that's the way to go if you
The
think
death
about
roll
it.
the death roll was the part I was not expecting. Like,
That's
I when I saw it
yeah.
grab her, I was like, "Oh, she's dead," and then we just see it death rolling, I'm like, "Oh my
That's how
god."
they fucking kill,
Yeah,
man. It's
yeah,
horrifying. I can't tell what would be worse. I mean, there's a lot of horrible ways to die, but I think clamped between the jaws of a gator and being death rolled is definitely up there on the list. And it's
and
upsetting. They don't show much of it, but it is graphic still, I would say.
this movie does a great job of really not showing a lot, but having very effective kills. Like when he
Effective
kill when he
visuals.
yeah, when he kills Kid Cudi, like you don't see anything. It's the sound and the suddenness. You're like, oh, and then this, like Yeah, it could have been way more graphic, but, like, you just seeing the water splash, you seeing the body, we're like, super effective, and this was also one of the moments that really gave me a lot of interest in Pearl's story because he's like she has that whole line of like, "You know I don't like blondes."
Yep, I heard that there's a reasoning for that that is explored in Pearl, which I wouldn't expect any less out of out of these movies now, but I'm excited to find out why she doesn't like blondes.
This movie did such a good job of, like, laying little things about Pearl that I'm like, "I wanna know what happened to you."
Yeah, why are you this way?
Because normally when someone announces like a prequel, I'm just like, "Oh, okay, they're just trying to keep this thing going." But this, I'm like, oh, I want to see this prequel because this character fucking love. I'm so engaged, so interested.
I was a dancer in those early years. And then the war came, so not everything in life turns out how you expect.
You wanna know what the fuck is wrong with her and why she is this weirdo killer. I mean, she's obviously a psychopath, but it
Hmm.
sounds like some horrible fucked up shit happened to her in her life, and I, for one, cannot wait to see it unfold in Pearl.
Yeah, she's a real person, which is
She's a real Pearl.
amazing. Real Pearl. All right, what's the next kill?
So the next one is, I think, what we both were saying that might be our favorite was the shotgun to the face by Jenna Ortega with when she gets shot in the face, which is great because I will say, as much development as her character had over the movie that we talked about, she kind of backtracks all of that right before she dies, which kind of I think seals the deal. But she's locked in the basement the whole time, and then Mia Goth finally gets to the house and saves her, and she is literally like, "Fuck you. You're the reason for all of this. It's your fault. I hate you. I hate you." And she's like, and Mia Goth's just like, "Bitch, calm down. We have to get out of here." And she's like, "No, fuck you." And like runs out the door and like literally as soon as she steps out the door, she fucking
Boom.
like trips. Yeah, it's like she gets shotgun to the fucking face and just falls down. And it was hilarious. It made me laugh out loud so hard.
I never should have listened to you. This is all your fault. Lorraine, we need to stick together. I hate you. Lorraine.
It's one of the moments where, like, the first time I watched it, I'm just like, "Oh, whoa, whoa!" I'm gonna
Yeah.
watch that again, and
Yeah.
and then I'm equally as excited watching it with someone that hasn't seen that scene
Yes.
because I know they're gonna have the same reaction. So, like, I watched it with Sarah, and she's just like, "Huh! Oh my god."
Comes out of fucking nowhere, dude.
Yeah,
Like you said, those shotgun blasts are no fucking joke in this movie. They are literally like always a surprise and always deliver, which is incredible that you could have so many of those and we're still not expecting it after like the third time, you
yeah.
know?
It was so good,
I
like
think that's just yeah, that one is just my favorite for the hilariousness and the suddenness and all around, like, the choreography of it. It works very well. I think
yeah,
it's just incredible the way that it's funny, but it also is still a little scary because 'cause you're like, "Oh,
yeah.
shit, they're right there. Fuck." Like, she was supposed to get away.
Also, another, like, really anxiety driven scene is when Jenna Ortega breaks the door and, like, reaches for the lock. You're just like, "Oh my god. Oh my god," and then this time it actually delivers, like, it just smashes her hand.
Oh,
But
that
that
was
scene, I'm just like,
horrible.
"Oh, oh my god."
But yeah, no, that was great. The next 2 are, like, kind of more, they're just the old people, so I don't know if you wanna
Yeah.
get into that yet, but
I think we should. We're here.
okay, we're here, like, why not?
I was actually really happy with how Howard died.
Me too.
He got scared and had a heart attack, and, like, they
It was
established he
perfect.
had heart problems, and he just had sex, so
Yeah.
now he's already compromised, and so then the littlest scare just triggers it.
It scared me too because he's, like, dragging Jenna Ortega's body inside, and her body does one of those, like, death roll things where it's or
uh,
not death roll, whatever,
just like
death rattle. A
yeah,
death rattle, right? Where it's, like, just gases releasing,
yeah,
and it, like he literally, like, falls back against the wall, and it literally got me too. Like, I'm sure if I had a heart problem, I probably would've died too if I were him.
mhm,
But also, like, "Fuck you, dude, you deserve it." But it was
yeah,
just really great because he's like, "Oh, my heart." Like, fuck, finally got him. I love that that was, like, something that pays
yeah.
back again later.
I was really happy with that because, yeah, like, everyone else had a really, like, gruesome death, and I thought it was nice just to have one little, like, really subtle death,
Yes.
you know?
One subtle for all the other vicious, disturbing.
Yeah.
I mean, plus it's only because Pearl didn't kill him. If she would have killed him, it would have been gnarly. I think that's her jam, you know?
Yeah.
She really likes to fuck you up. Not
Yeah.
just casually, you know? It's not just "Oh, let me just, slit your throat." It's like, "I'm gonna stab you like 100 times until your head's, like, almost all the way off." Like, she's crazy. But then Pearl and Maxine have a little standoff at the end because Pearl doesn't have the shotgun. It's on the ground, but Mia Goth has the gun that Wayne had in his car, the little revolver. And so she's like pointed at her, and then when she goes to finally shoot her, 'cause she's holding at her for way too long. I would have shot that bitch
Mhm.
in the face. And the gun is not loaded, of course.
Well, I loved that they had that little scene earlier of when Howard is holding Wayne up at gunpoint, and he's like, "It's not even loaded. Most of the time, this just scares him off." And then Wayne's like, "I do the same thing. I have the same exact thing in my glove box." It's like that whole scene. You're like, was Wayne lying? When I was watching with Sarah, she's like, "Isn't the gun empty?" And I'm like, "Is it? Is it? I don't know."
That's a good question, yeah. I did not catch that the first time, but that's funny because I was, like, expecting it to work, and I was like, "This is gonna be so good, just fucking blow her head up." But then it doesn't work, and you're like, "No, fuck," and then Pearl not jumps, I mean, she, like, she can barely walk, but she goes for the shotgun and picks it up, and as Mia Goth, like, dives out of the way, Pearl shoots and then gets blasted
Sh sh
fucking
straight yeeted out the
through the door.
door.
Breaks her fucking probably every bone in her body on that fucking fall. That was hilarious. I loved that so much because I was
Oh,
not anticipating it. I guess she doesn't really use that weapon very often because, I mean, Howard was using it all night and he wasn't getting blown away. He must have known, like, how to fucking do that thing.
Howard knows how to brace himself for a gunshot, and
Apparently, Pearl has no idea.
no clue, and, like, if you've ever shot a shotgun, like, it is powerful, like, you put it in your
Mhm.
shoulder, and, like, your shoulder is sore the next day from
Wow.
shooting. So, like, if you're just holding it, not braced against your shoulder, if you're just holding it like she was, just, like, with your hands, it's gonna go flying, and if you don't let go of the gun, you're gonna go flying, and I loved that that is exactly what happened.
Oh, it was
Oh,
incredible.
we lost our minds. We're just laughing our asses off. It's so great because yeah, it's so unexpected, it's so tense, and then it happens, and you're just like, "That is exactly what would happen."
Yeah, it really is, and now I know never to fire a shotgun, and if I do, I'm gonna, like, tie myself to the fucking something, hold myself down, like, Jesus. I didn't know that was a thing, but fuck, that looked painful.
It's exaggerated a little bit, but
Oh, I'm
it's
sure.
so funny,
So good.
and then the fact that when she walks out, she's like, "My hip!"
I
Like
know, and then she's like, "Help me," and then like, I love that Mia got this just like, "Shh, be quiet, like, fuck you," and she's like, "You stupid whore, you're not gonna be famous, you're gonna be nothing," and then I fucking loved when she just, like, gets in the car, turns it on, and just, like, reverses back and, like, pops that bitch's head off with the wheel.
Mhm.
So satisfying, I have to say.
And now I'll be the one to talk about foreshadowing. When they at the beginning when they drive past the cows that got hit by the truck and it's squishing over the tires, and she's like, "Oh, I hate blood." She did the same thing to Pearl.
Yeah.
Didn't hate blood that time.
Now she's like, "I'm all about blood. I was born in blood."
I will not accept the life that I don't deserve, or whatever that line is.
I will not accept a life I do not deserve.
I also wanted to mention that because that's the quote that she says to herself the whole time, to hype herself up and that she's gonna be a star and that she's somebody, right? And you know that like she doesn't we don't know much about her, but that she's not she probably she left home, she doesn't want to go back. That's pretty much all she mentions. And like
Mhm.
throughout the movie and like different like on the radio or like at the gas station and then at Pearl's house, there's like that preacher guy on the TV or the radio preaching about shit. And at the end, when she's, like, yelling at Pearl and, like, having their, like, standoff, and she says the line that he says at the same fucking time on the TV, which is, "I will not accept a life that I do not deserve." And I was like, "Whoa, what the fuck?" And
Yeah.
then it's like, that's, like, her dad, because like, at the end, it shows, like, him showing a picture of her and saying that their daughter left them for sin and all this stuff. And I was like, did not expect that. That was an incredible little like thing that, again, little detail, had no idea what it would mean, and it came right back at the end.
Yeah, it was so good. It was one of those like little twists that I don't think needed to happen, but because it did, it actually added a lot more like depth. It kind of reminds me of in Palm Springs when we learned that the girl is cheating
Yes.
on her or cheating with the fiance, her sister's fiance. It's like that little thing. We didn't need that to make the movie really good, but it adds such a little layer of depth and interest that I was like,
Yeah.
"Oh, that's great." Like I already loved this movie, and the fact that it ends with that little sprinkle, I'm like, "Oh, love it. I'm
And then
there."
a sprinkle of Coke on the hand as she drives off, because she's like, that's one of my favorite things in this movie is that she's doing cocaine the entire time. And it's like normally, at least like I know horror movies have changed over the years, like from how they used to be, but for a long period of time, if you were doing coke and you were drinking and having sex and doing whatever you wanted, you were like the first to die. You were definitely not making it out of the movie alive. And that's one of my favorite things about this movie is the fact that like the girl who fucks like a lot and who does drugs and who like left the religious community, she's the fucking final girl. And that
Mhm.
was like I loved it. Like the fact that she's doing coke like after she like kills everybody, gets out of there. She's just like, gonna need this for the ride home. What a fucking night. Like it's just it was incredible. I mean, I've said it a million times. It's incredible, this whole movie. But I love the twist of like the girl who's a porn star and who's like doing drugs is the one that's like the final girl. I love
Mhm.
it. We don't need these virginal women. That's just men trying to tell us what you should be a virgin or else you're gonna die, basically.
Well, and then the two characters that are not filmed having sex, they're the first ones to die, RJ and Wayne.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. It's crazy.
So I wanted to throw a little something at you about Pearl. Just
Okay.
want to get your thoughts. So Pearl is clearly a sophisticated killer. She knows what she's doing.
Mm-hmm.
Have a little list of people that who you think would win in a fight against Pearl. Would Pearl win or would
Mm.
the other person win? All these people are kind of old, just to make it, kind of even.
Cool.
But
I was about to say it's like her versus Jason Voorhees because I already know.
Pearl versus Liam Neeson. Take
Ooh,
it, take in Liam Neeson or any of those movies, but
interesting. Yeah, it's got to be a Taken or else he's gone. He doesn't stand a chance. I don't know. I
I
mean,
think it's
again,
Pearl
I think Pearl. I know. I'm like,
because
I want to say because it's not like they're gonna be like what put into a ring together and fight. It's more like they come upon each other in real life, and she's got the old lady. Oh, I need help, and he's like, oh, okay, yeah, I'm Liam Neeson. I'm a badass, but I'm a nice guy, right?
yeah,
I'll walk. I know the skills. I can walk you to the store or whatever the fuck.
I kill terrorists. I have a particular set of skills for terrorists, not women that I help cross the street and then they stab me halfway through.
Exactly. That's the thing. Pearl just has the surprise factor. I
All
gotta
right,
give it to her.
Pearl. Okay, Jigsaw.
Mm. I might say Jigsaw, but that's just because he would put her in a trap that would be her undoing, you know?
Here's
I don't know what it would be, but it would be disturbing is all
I'm
I
gonna
know.
I'm gonna go Pearl again
Hmm.
because Jigsaw he doesn't put old people into his traps.
I
So
don't know.
so
He might
he's
have.
so he's gonna make a trap that's actually pretty simple, pretty easy. Pearl just has to fake having a heart attack or something. Boom, stab to the neck. It's done.
He wants you to die though. That's the whole thing with Jigsaw.
No,
He wants you to die or live.
he wants you to grow. But anyway,
Or and if you can't grow, then you die. That's his. If you can't grow, you're dead. That's
yeah.
basically his whole thing.
All right. Second to last one. Pearl versus, and this is just for fun, the Predator. Pearl wins. We've already
Pearl.
established this. The Predator
Predator sucks.
does nothing but die.
Yeah. Predator doesn't know how to do shit.
The Predator would be like, "You're not a threat." Boom, pitchfork to the eye.
Yeah, exactly. Predator would just she wouldn't even come up on his scans because he's like,
She's got
nothing.
no body heat.
Yeah. I mean, probably. She's like, she's just so
She just
upsetting to
covers
look at.
herself in Vaseline.
Yeah. I mean, she has to in order. I mean, that's the thing I was wondering when they're having sex. I'm like, that's got to be just like sandpaper rubbing together.
Now, this one, I don't know if I can pick a winner, but I think this is the championship match of villains who prey on being unsuspecting. Pearl versus Esther.
Hmm. I like
Both of
this.
them are like, you have to assume that I'm not a threat. That would be a hard one.
And they both like to fuck. So there's that too. They're both fucking. I mean, granted, maybe they might just go, we should team up. I think this would be the thing. They wouldn't kill each other. They'd recognize the strength and go, we'll be a team and we will fucking kill as many people as we want in whatever order we want.
Man, if we did the villain draft and included Pearl in this, if I got Pearl in my sex demon Esther tag team, if I had a three-way tag team, oh.
I mean, they would have been out there drugging and fucking everybody. My team would have had a chance. Like, Jesus.
Oh, all right.
God. Well, this movie is just incredible
It's great.
overall.
Do you have a favorite kill?
Yeah, I think it's still Jenna Ortega. I think it's just for the shock factor, but like stylistically, I think the RJ stabbed in the neck, the director at the beginning is my favorite like sequence
Yeah.
because I just love the aesthetics of it, you know? And
Yeah.
it all vibes perfectly and just really sets the tone. But I think like overall rewatchability, it's got to be the shotgun to the face, Jenna Ortega. I can't get over it. It's so fun.
I For me, it's either of the shotguns at the end, whether it's Pearl's shotgun or
Yeah.
Jenna Ortega's. They're just both so unexpected. But yeah,
Yeah.
you just made me think of something. All the kills in this movie are all very different,
Mhm.
and I think that's one of the reasons why I like all of them so much. Like they're all so different. Like there's a stabbing kill, there's an alligator kill.
Yeah,
There's
there's a lot of variety in here.
yeah.
And, like, that's yeah, the alligator, I'm surprised Pearl doesn't use that thing more because that just is the prime way to dispose of people, you know? When they're, like, talking about getting rid of the bodies, I'm like, "Yeah, they must just feed that crocodile all the fucking time." But, like, that thing, I would be utilizing it a lot more. I'd be leading more people back into the pond if I were her, you know? That thing is I mean, that'll put your numbers up. That guy's gonna get everybody that comes into that pond. I'm surprised he didn't get me a goth, honestly.
So one of the things with this movie, like obviously it is paying a lot of homage to Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Mhm.
I thought for a while, like the house, I thought that was the house that like they filmed Texas Chainsaw Massacre in. It wasn't until you told me that this was filmed in New Zealand. I'm like, okay, it's not the house, but like it just looks like it.
It really does, like, the property, like, I mean, everything about this movie, not even just the location and, like, the house, but, like, the way that it's shot and, like, the style, the cinematography, the film that is used, it looks like it's made like, this movie looks like it was made in 1979, which is the
Mhm.
cool part, and it also feels like this is the best Texas Chainsaw sequel that we've ever had. I think this is the ultimate one that we were maybe promised after the first one and none of them ever lived up to, right? Because none of the other sequels had ever captured the same vibe that people love about the original, which is how it looks like, it looks gross. Like it looks kind of like it looks so real and like almost like you can feel the heat just coming out of the frames when you're watching the movie.
Mm.
And I felt that a lot with this one. And it's, like, crazy how well they captured the vibe and feel of Texas with it being shot in New Zealand. But, yeah, I found that, like, this feels like Texas Chainsaw more than, like I mean, especially the newest Texas Chainsaw, they should have watched this movie and figured out how to fucking do it because I think with all the other Texas Chainsaw, the newer movies that they've tried to do, they all look really glossy and, like, new and, like, really I don't know, they just don't besides, I think the remake with Jessica Biel captures, like, the dirtiness and the grimy, like, gnarly vibe,
Mhm.
but it's still, like, the actual film and the way that it's shot is like a music video, which is,
Yeah.
like, that's all the 2000s horror movies. But I that's why I like this one is that it feels like it's from that time period, and I think Ty West is just insanely talented at that skill because his other movie, The House of the Devil, takes place in the 80s. And I kid you not, if like every little thing in that movie does not feel like this movie is from the 80s. There's no way that somebody just made this like within the past 20 years, right?
Yeah.
It's crazy how he's able to do that. I'm sure it's so much goes into the details to make sure it matches, but that's one of the things that really I'm glad you noticed that too, because it just felt like in general, this is like the biggest homage to Texas Chainsaw without ripping it off, which
Yeah.
is hard to do, I bet.
Well, and I'm excited to watch Pearl because that's going to take place like, I don't know, 50 years
80
before
years or 70
this.
years or something. It takes place in like 1818 or sorry, 1919. And so
So yeah,
that's in
it's
like the
like 50
1920s.
years.
I can't do math. Jeez.
80 years would imply that she's like 10 years old in the movie.
Okay. Well, okay. So I don't know. I can't
So,
do math, but it does take place in the 20s. Yeah, the golden
yeah.
age of Hollywood.
So I'm excited to see how the look of that. I'm not expecting it to be too different just because it's the same set and everything.
It does look a lot different though from everything I've seen in like scenes and clips. It
Hmm.
looks like it's like from like the like back then. Like it literally feels like the golden age of Hollywood and cinema. Like everything about it, people are saying it feels like Wizard of Oz, which is
Yeah.
incredible that they would be able to pivot so much with all the same things that they had to use, you know?
Yeah.
It's all about how you put it together and edit it, I'm sure.
Well, and the fact that they filmed Pearl totally in secret. No one knew that it was even a thing until they premiered X, and then at the end of the movie, they had the trailer for Pearl. Right?
Yeah,
That's
at
how it
the it's
happened.
the end credits, yeah, so just like regular people seeing it in the theaters, it's like at the very end is Pearl, and you're like and it says coming out in September, and you're like, "I'm sorry, what? Like in
Yeah.
6 months? And they already filmed it? What are you talking about?" Everyone was like, "Holy shit." So that was just like crazy, and then they just did the same thing when they just premiered Pearl a few months ago at the Toronto Film Festival. I think it was at the very end of the credits, there's a little tiny teaser video for the third film that they have not already filmed yet. They are filming it right now called Maxine, and it will follow our main girl, Mia Goth from X. Instead of going back in time, we're going forward to Hollywood in the 80s. And
Hmm.
it should be, I'm sure there's going to be some porn. There's going to be some I'm curious to see what she's up to now after this night cuz this would fuck me up for life, I think, after living through this shit, especially an old woman molesting me in bed, which I know we didn't mention, but that's got to be up there for most horrifying things that could ever happen to you.
That scene was really interesting because like that's good like special effects because she's playing both of them. So
She's playing with herself right there.
she's just got to play around with that. Yeah, I'm really interested to see Maxine because yeah, it's taking place essentially like a year after this, but the movie ends. So X ends with them finding the camera, which she is on there. So like, I wonder if that's gonna follow her.
I was wondering that too, if like that will be what made her a star. Like if they find that tape and like if they make that movie
Oh,
because everybody died, but it's like kind of got a cool story behind it, right?
oh, I didn't even think of that. That would be really interesting if like that tape makes her a star.
That's what I was wondering because, well, also maybe I'm just thinking about that because I watched that Pam and Tommy show and like Seth Rogen plays the guy who like worked for them and had a grievance and steals their sex tape and leaks it. And I was just like,
Oh.
I mean, if somebody found that fucking tape and there's all that good sex on it, I mean, you might want to put that out there, try and get it out in the world to be like, hey, maybe I can make some money off of it. And then maybe that's what propels her to Hollywood. Or maybe she just says, fuck it, I'm going straight to Hollywood after this because if I can survive this shit, I think I could take on some producers. But I'm assuming it will still be horror. I don't really know. I'm curious. Maybe now she's like a mini Pearl and she's crazy killing people.
Mm.
I'd be curious. There's a lot of different ways to go with it. I think that's what I'm most excited about. Is X really doesn't tell you what's next or
Mhm.
how she's gonna handle this because like that's gonna be a lot to process. All the
Yeah.
cocaine in the world won't help you process that shit. Maybe it'll
Uh,
help, but but yeah, that one comes out, I think, in 2023. I don't know when. Maybe spring, summer. I could be wrong. I don't think it's been announced, but
okay.
very excited for Maxine. Super pumped about Pearl. That'll be on streaming, I think, in November. It said it was coming to Showtime. So people will be able to watch that if you haven't caught it in theaters, but we'll be doing an episode for that too.
Uh,
I'm
a
sure.
100%.
Yeah.
I'm excited for Pearl. I'm excited for Maxine. I'm excited for a a weird out of nowhere franchise that just like popped up in 2020. We got 2022 and 3 movies in less than 2 years.
As much as I get, like, it takes a long time to make things and to make them really well. It's like, I love House of the Dragon and Lord of the Rings shows, but 2 more years I'm gonna have to wait before another season, and that is very bothersome. What happened? Like, I feel like Ty West was like Peter Jackson was onto something, filming in New Zealand and filming everything at the same fucking time. That was genius. Again, that was another studio, New Line Cinema, taking a risk and filming 3 movies at the same time instead of one. Can you imagine how fucking terrible Lord of the Rings would have been if they did that?
Would have been
Would have been
terrible.
awful. That's what I'm saying. I hope this. I mean, just the success from X and Pearl alone, and then Maxine. I hope more studios will take chances on movies like this because this is what we want.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Give us some good new original shit. It's hard to be original nowadays, and when people have an original idea, we should really give them a platform to use. So.
Or even if it's not original, if you just know how to do it well, if you know how to make good characters, just give us what we want.
Just Ty West, please never stop working. Please make movies every year for the rest of your life. I love it. I'm here for it.
Don't forget to like and subscribe. We out here.